It was a long time ago. In a quiet hill village, where the rays of the sun danced with the soft breeze, a mother gave birth to a child. His name was Jesus. Jesus was born in an ordinary home, the son of a carpenter, but his heart was extraordinary. From childhood, he enjoyed helping others. When the children of the village fought, Jesus would teach them peace and love. When someone cried, he would sit quietly nearby and wipe away the tears with his little hands. People looked at him differently. "This child is special," the village elders would say. But no one knew that one day this child would give the world the greatest message of forgiveness, love, and hope. One day, when he was just 12 years old, he went to the temple in Jerusalem. There he conversed with the learned men. What he said was like that of a wise old man, deep, thoughtful, and full of truth. People's eyes were filled with wonder, but Jesus' eyes were filled with love. Time passed. As Jesus grew up, he saw how much suffering, how much injustice, and how much loneliness there was in this world. He saw people hating each other, demeaning each other in the name of caste, class, rich and poor. One day, when he was praying alone on the top of a mountain, he heard an inner voice. "Jesus, get up! This world is in darkness. It needs light. It needs love. It needs forgiveness." And that is when a journey began. A journey that would transform hate into love, hatred into forgiveness, and despair into hope. Jesus made his disciples 12 simple and ordinary men who were fishermen, tax collectors, and some were completely illiterate. But Jesus taught them, "Love as I love you. Forgive even those who hurt you. Forgive the way of God." His words were simple but profound. "If someone strikes you on one cheek," Jesus would say, "turn the other cheek also. The least of you is the greatest in the kingdom of God. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you." People were shocked. Who says that? But those who heard would be heartbroken. They would be changed. Once upon a time, people gathered to stone a woman whom everyone called a sinner. The crowd was shouting, "Hit her! She is a sinner." Jesus quietly stepped forward. He wrote something on the ground and then said to the people, "Let him who has never sinned cast the first stone." The crowd was stunned. One by one, everyone left. "No one accuses you," Jesus said to the woman. "No, Lord," she said, trembling. "Neither do I. Go and do not sin from now on." This was the culmination of forgiveness. The world kept saying, "Punish sin." But Jesus said, "Give love to the sinner, then he will change himself." This love of Jesus, this forgiveness, this compassion, this gradually started living in the hearts of people. The poor, the sick, the broken people would come to him, and he would touch them, and they would get well. His only message was, God is love. He also met the rich and explained to them, "Share what you have, because when you give bread to the hungry, you feed me. When you clothe the naked, you cover me." His words were like a revolution, but not with weapons, but with love and forgiveness. But where there is love, hatred also raises its head. The religious leaders started feeling threatened by Jesus. They would say, "This man is breaking the law. He is turning people against us. Stop him." But Jesus did not stop. He did not stop speaking the truth. One day, he saw people trading money in the temple. He turned the tables over in anger and said, "You have made my Father's house a den of thieves." People were stunned. Was this the same Jesus who spoke with love? Yes, he was, because true love never watches injustice silently. Gradually, his influence grew, and with the same speed, his opponents also started becoming active. From here, the story takes a turn. Now love and hate are face to face. Now truth and power are going to clash. Now the real test of forgiveness is going to happen. Jesus had now become a well-known name. People started calling him the Messiah, the one who has come to save people. But in the light of this love, darkness started to deepen on some faces. The religious leaders were afraid. If he keeps speaking like this, people will listen to him, not us. And then what will we be? Their fear gradually started turning into hatred. And when hatred becomes conspiracy, the world trembles. One night, when the moon was full and whispers were spreading in every corner of the city of Jerusalem, Jesus was having his last meal with his 12 disciples in a small room. That meal, which went down in history as the Last Supper, but every moment, every word of that night seemed to become a mirror of the future. Jesus broke the bread and said, "This is my body, which will be broken for you." Then he picked up the cup and said, "This is my blood, which will be shed for your forgiveness." The disciples were stunned, but Jesus knew his end was near. And then he said something that left a silence. "One of you will betray me." Silence all around. Every disciple was shocked. "Would I, Lord? Would I not, Lord?" But Jesus' eyes were straight at Judas, the disciple who had quietly made a deal with those who wanted to arrest Jesus, in exchange for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus knew, yet he looked at Judas with love. He did not stop him. He did not rebuke him. Why? Because forgiveness begins where love takes its most difficult form, embracing even betrayal. That night, Jesus took his beloved disciples to a garden, the Garden of Gethsemane. There they prayed, deeply, brokenly, weeping, "Father, if it is possible, remove this cup of suffering from me. But your will is greater than mine." What a touching prayer. A man who knows that the next morning he will be crucified still says, "Your will be done." Here, in this very garden, soldiers came at midnight. With them, Judas, the same Judas who kissed Jesus. A kiss, a symbol of love, turned that kiss into a betrayal. "This is Jesus," he said, and the soldiers arrested him. The disciples fled in fear. The crowd, which used to shout "Hosanna" during the day, was now missing. Those who stood together were now hiding. This is human nature. When everything is fine, people get together. But when the storm comes, few stay. Jesus was brought before the religious leaders. "Do you claim to be the Son of God? Are you the Messiah?" Jesus replied, "I am what you say." That was enough. They shouted, "He is insulting God! Kill him! Punish him!" But they did not have the power to kill Jesus, so they took him to the Roman ruler, Pilate. Pilate looked at Jesus, a calm face, wounded but proud. He asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus replied, "My kingdom is not of this world." Pilate was surprised. He saw no crime in Jesus. He said to the crowd, "I find no fault in him." But the crowd started shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Not to anyone else, but to the same crowd, which had shouted a few days before, "Hosanna! Blessed be the Lord." And today the same crowd was chanting, "Kill him!" Pilate was afraid. He washed his hands and said, "I am innocent of the blood of this innocent man." But the decision was made. Jesus was flogged. He was humiliated. A crown of thorns was placed on his head. People spit on him, mocked him. "O King, speak. Where is your kingdom?" But Jesus said nothing. He remained silent. Why? Because forgiveness remains silent even when the whole world makes noise. Finally, the morning came, which saw the harshest test of humanity. Jesus was crucified between two thieves as if he were a criminal. Iron nails were hammered into his hands and feet. Blood kept flowing. The pain was unbearable. And then, hanging on that cross, Jesus spoke the words that became some of the most compassionate, the greatest words in history. "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do." Can anyone say that when he is being tortured, when people are laughing at him, when he is in agony? But that was Jesus. His love was greater than the cross. His forgiveness was deeper than the nail that was driven into his hand. A thief hanging next to him said, "Lord, remember me when you go to your kingdom." Jesus said, "Today you will be with me in heaven." Even as he was dying, he was giving life. He was distributing forgiveness. He was lavishing love. The sky went dark, the earth shook, and then the last words, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And he breathed his last. On the mountain stood 3 crosses, and in the middle of them was the cross, on which hung the body of the one who had only loved, forgiven, healed, and taught that God is love. Now the body was motionless. The head was bowed. The eyes were closed. The earth wept. The sky thundered. The curtains of the temple were torn in two. The people standing there trembled. A soldier muttered, "Surely this man was the Son of God." It was evening. According to Jewish law, no one could be left on a cross overnight. A gentleman, Joseph, came forward. He believed in Jesus in hiding. He begged Pilate, "Give me the body of my Lord." And once again, love quietly did its work. Jesus' body was placed in a stone tomb. A heavy stone was rolled over it. The soldiers set up a guard for fear that his followers might steal his body. But stones cannot stop God's work. 3 days passed. From Friday evening to Sunday morning, every disciple, every follower was filled with fear and grief. Is it all over? Has the Messiah failed? Was the power of love a lie? On Sunday morning, at daybreak, some women arrived at the tomb, carrying spices. They had come to pay their respects to Jesus' body. But what they saw when they arrived was beyond their imagination. The stone had been moved. The tomb was empty. And there stood a shining angel who said, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen." The women ran. They told the disciples. Peter and John ran. And yes, the tomb was really empty. That same day, 2 disciples were walking to a village called Emmaus. They were talking about Jesus' death all the way. Then a stranger came up to them and started talking to them. He began to explain to them from the Scriptures why the Messiah had to suffer. When they reached the village, the stranger stopped for a meal, and he broke bread. Their eyes were opened. It was Jesus. And then he disappeared. Love had defeated death. Jesus appeared to the disciples again and again. He even allowed a doubter like Thomas to be touched, so that even doubt could turn to faith. He caught fish for the fishermen again, cooked food on the fire, and said to his friends, "As the Father sent me, so I send you. Go spread the message of love and forgiveness throughout the world." This was the real victory of forgiveness. Jesus, whose companions had abandoned him, who had denied him, forgot them. He did not take revenge on anyone. He asked Peter, "Do you love me?" Peter wept. He had denied 3 times, but now he was saying 3 times, "Yes, Lord, I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my people." The broken in shame was given dignity. The fallen was lifted. The rejected was accepted. This is the power of forgiveness. Gradually, Jesus prepared his disciples for the day when they would have to go out into the world alone. He said, "I will not leave you alone. I am with you forever." And then, on a hill, blessing his followers, Jesus was taken up to heaven. The disciples, looking up to the sky, were thinking only one thing: he defeated death. If his love is like this, we can endure anything in this world. Jesus left, but he was not gone, because his love remained. His forgiveness remained. His message, which still touches hearts today, remained. After Jesus ascended to heaven, there was a silence. But it was a silence not of fear, but of resolve. All that he had taught, love, forgiveness, hope, was now alive in the hearts of his disciples. They knew it was time to share that love with the world, to extend to the world the forgiveness that had sustained them even when they were broken. A new light began to spread through the streets of Jerusalem. People who had been hiding in fear yesterday were now standing up and saying, "You crucified him, but he forgave you." Peter, the same man who had denied Jesus 3 times, was now telling people, "Repent and believe in the name of him who raised me up again." And people were listening. Their hearts were melting. Thousands were accepting that forgiveness every day. Even those who were criminals, even those who were steeped in sin. Everyone began saying, "If Jesus forgave them, maybe he can forgive me too." But the road was not easy. Jesus' followers were persecuted, put in prison, stoned, crucified. Still, they did not shut up. Why? Because they had seen a man who, as he lay dying, prayed for his enemies. "Father, forgive them." If he did that, how could his followers back down? Time passed. Jesus' message of forgiveness was no longer confined to Jerusalem. It echoed in the streets of Rome, was debated in the universities of Greece. Churches were built in the sands of Egypt. The fragrance reached the lands of India. This forgiveness had now become a power, winning wars with love, not with weapons. Time and history saw many faces. Emperors who threw Christians to the lions, armies who burned down churches, thinkers who called Jesus a fable. But each time, a voice rose again. "Father, forgive them," and forgiveness won again. Some years later, a man sat in a prison in Rome. His name was Paul. At first, he was the greatest enemy of Jesus' followers. He used to beat them and betray them. But one day, when he was going to a city called Damascus, a light stopped him. A voice came, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" He fell down. He understood that the one he thought was his enemy was actually God's son. And the same Paul, who had once rejected forgiveness, now became its greatest example. He said, "I was the worst sinner, but grace was given to me so that everyone would know how great God's love is." The story continued. One by one, Jesus' followers were martyred, but forgiveness did not die. A new church was born from the blood of every martyr. A new testimony came out of every torture. And every time it comes back to this one thing: he forgave his enemies. Times have changed. The world has changed. Now we are in the modern age, the time of skyscrapers, the internet, rockets, and artificial intelligence. The human heart, it is still the same. It breaks, it fears, it hates, and then it finds love. The story of Jesus is still as important today, because we still fight, we still cheat, we still insult, we hurt, and we fight. And someone somewhere is still sitting there wondering, is there anyone who will forgive me? And there, a voice comes from within. Yes, I am. I have loved you before. The love of Jesus is still alive. He still reaches into a prisoner's cell, in the loneliness of a widow, in the cry of a broken heart, in the last prayer of a young man about to commit suicide. And he says, "You are not alone. You are forgiven." This is not the story of any religion. This is the story of a love that forgave even those who were hammering nails. This is the story of hope that came out of the grave. This is the story of a light that never goes off even in darkness. Today, when you are listening to this story, maybe you too are carrying some burden. Maybe you hate someone. Maybe you hate yourself. Maybe you think, "I cannot be forgiven." But remember, the one who spoke of forgiveness on the cross keeps that door open for you even today. He does not ask, "Who are you?" He simply says, "You are mine." So now the decision is yours. Will you accept that forgiveness? Will you be able to forgive others? Because forgiveness doesn't just mean that we let go of someone, but that we set ourselves free. The story of Jesus didn't end on the cross. It didn't end in the grave. It continues even today, in every heart that chooses love, in every soul that learns to forgive. Jesus' story of forgiveness can now become your story. If this story of Jesus' forgiveness touched your heart, if it made you feel hope, love, and truth, then give this video a like. Because your one like can spread this message to many more hearts. If you want more stories like this that touch the soul to be delivered to you regularly, be sure to subscribe to our channel. And yes, share this video, because there may be someone who is broken, lost, and needs this message of forgiveness right now. It's not words, but love that makes a difference. And that's the difference we can make together in the world. Thank you. God bless you.